But everyone says you're not going to get the ceasefire. It'll take place on the second meeting. The second meeting is going to be but I'm not going to be happy with that. So we'll see what happens. I'm going to be, I won't be happy if I walk away without some form of a ceasefire. Now, I say this, and I've said it from the beginning, this is really setting the table today. We're going to have another meeting if things work out, which will be very soon. Or we're not going to have any more meetings at all, maybe ever.
So he was optimistic, but essentially said he could walk, much like Ronald Reagan walked in Reykjavik with Gorbachev in 1986. I didn't mention Senator Murkowski is on board too right now, meeting with the president. Before that, he had me into that office. That's where that is, the office in the front of Air Force One, and he had me listen as he talked to the leader of Belarus, Lukashenko, and essentially said that Lukashenko, told him that he believes that Putin is ready to deal and that this is going to be a positive thing. Now, remember, the leader of Belarus is a close ally of the Russian president, and so it was informative. You also got some hostages released who were jailed inside Belarus, the president did. So he came off that call optimistic about where things stood.
Yeah, there was some coordination with Belarus in the invasion that happened more than 3 years ago, and discussions between the two leaders about how much, support they would be willing to give to this effort. Obviously, Putin's in a difficult position right now, Brett. He has an economy that is in very bad shape. He is losing close to 1 million people, include the killed and casualties in Russia. What is did you get a sense from the president of how he feels his leverage is at this moment with Putin?
I think he thinks it's significant. I also talked to Steve Witkoff and Secretary Rubio on board, as well as the Secretary of Treasury, Bessent, and the Secretary of Commerce. They were all there in that area where I was. There is a sense that Russia is hurting economically, and that the squeeze has been made to the point where that led to the talks that Witkoff has had, I think 6 individual talks prior to this meeting, with his negotiating other side for the Russians. And the president specifically said that when they put the tariffs on the Indians and the country of India for buying Russian oil, that was like a flare that went up, because it was going to put the further squeeze on Russia. There's the opportunity to do more of that. China's the biggest purchaser of Russian oil, and I think you're going to see a lot of that. The fact that he said numerous times that he could walk at any time was a signal, but I don't think that they think they're going to walk. I think that they think they're going to walk down this red carpet and see eye to eye with each other, and hope to get to a second meeting that includes President Zelensky.
President Trump has said that he would even like to see the Zelensky meeting happen while they're there in Alaska, to bring him in and to keep the momentum going on this. I want to ask you, Brett, about who is going to be in the meeting, because originally it was conveyed that it would be Putin and Trump initially. Then they would broaden it out at this lunch meeting after, but now the list is getting a little longer in terms of who's going to be in there on the initial meeting. What are your thoughts on that? What did you learn about that?
Well, when I talked on the plane, it was going to be President Trump and Steve Witkoff, the negotiator. Yeah. I think since then, Secretary Rubio has been added to that list because the Russians wanted one more as well. So it'll be a tighter group, and then they'll open it up during the lunch and the bilateral broader meeting for all the cabinet members. The Russians have also brought, according to the president, hundreds of people here, including business people from Russia, indicating that perhaps they're anxious to talk about what they can do economically as two countries together.
Yes, one of the Russian envoys was saying, this is very broad. We want to talk about trade. We want to talk about nuclear weapons. We want to talk about, the future of Europe. It's very interesting to see what they're coming in here with. And as you point out, potentially over 100 people. What is your sense about how President Trump wants the scope of this first discussion to be, and whether or not this indicates that Russia is in a different frame of mind about that?
He thinks that the scope of this is going to be broad. He thinks that that's part of the leverage that he has as far as the economic promise that America brings. He knows that he is not going to get into the nitty-gritty about what possible land situation is going to be, that the Ukrainians are going to be running point to that. He said again and again, he's setting the table. But if he doesn't see that the table is going to be set early on, he could walk. That said, as I said before, they realize that Russia really wants this economic side to work, and that's a big part of the equation. Should we bring in General Keane? Let's bring in retired four-star General Jack Keane, Fox News senior strategic analyst, former Army Vice Chief of Staff, chairman of the Institute for the Study of War. General, great to see you as always. In fact, you spent some time on this base, this very base.
Yeah, about 4 years. I was an infantry paratrooper there. One of the best assignments I've ever had. It's an adventure, to be sure.
What's your take as we get ready to see President Trump greet the Russian President Vladimir Putin here in Alaska?
Yeah, well, I think, the conclusion is pretty obvious. Putin called for the meeting, and it's likely what's motivating him. He wants to make certain these tariffs and sanctions do not fall on him, and he wants to come and talk about avoiding that and what it would take to avoid that. Obviously, the president's number one way to avoid it is go to a ceasefire. Putin has delayed that, for 6 months. I think there'll likely be a fair amount of economic discussion here, and you can see who the players are that the president has brought along with him to help facilitate that discussion, likely at a lunch meeting. But yeah, I think both carrots and sticks are at play here. Putin knows full well that Trump is holding the cards here on tariffs and sanctions, something he doesn't want to see, and you have outlined the serious economic issues that Russia already is beset with. I mean, we've got inflation in double digits. We've got interest rates hovering around 20%. The growth of the economy that was spurted with going to a war footing and pumping money into the defense industrial base, that has slowed down now, so growth is only about 1%, so it's stagnating. Their debt is a 30-year high, and next year their defense industrial base will not be able to keep up with the demands of the battlefield. That's just a fact. And he's paying high bonuses to recruit soldiers to fight, and based on our analysis of what's happening on the battlefield, they're showing up remarkably with only 2 to 3 weeks training. And that's one of the reasons why the casualties are so high on the Russian side. Poorly trained and poorly led. So Putin has a lot of issues here that he likes to change the narrative and tell the world that he's really winning this war and he'll win eventually, etc.